Yo, welcome back to another video. This is the MCU just casted Denzel Washington as the MCU villain. Bro, I know he gonna be a great villain, bro. I'm already knowing. I just saw recently that speech he gave one when he won I think a Grammy. That was beautiful. Um I'm ready to see what's next from my guy. So let's get right into it. Here we go.
What is happening, Magnus Sykes? So, looks like we've got some big news, huh? Some big news. My only question is, was he cast properly? And you absolutely know what I mean. Let's check this out, though. Get over and follow Cosmic Wonder. Tell him Tyrone Magnus sent you.
We have a very significant update today for Doctor Strange 3. We know that Doctor Strange 3 is going to be an incredibly important movie for the multiverse saga in the MCU, and it looks like Marvel Studios does already know the direction that they want to go, which does make a lot of sense because Doctor Strange 3 is supposed to come out before Avengers Doomsday, and it looks like they already know who their villain is going to be for the movie, the role that the villain is going to play, and the role, of course, that Doctor Strange is going to play in the entirety of the multiverse saga. And the best news is, it looks like we have a confirmation of who the villain is going to be played by, who I'm sure I put in the title so you already know, Denzel Washington. According to a new report from Production Weekly, Doctor Strange 3 is well underway, and we now have a director and our main villain. Now, we've heard the rumor about the director, and Production Weekly has listed for the director of Doctor Strange 3, Sam Raimi, which I do think is a great choice. I think that if they get Sam Raimi involved from the ground up, from the very beginning, let him be involved with the script, not come in and have to deal with somebody else's script and direction, I think it could be a great movie, especially with who they have planned to play the villain, which, according to Production Weekly, will be played by Denzel Washington himself. He is joining the MCU. And before you go off and start thinking, is Denzel Washington possibly playing a variant of Kang? No, it does not seem like that is going to be the case. I would have. I didn't even think about that. That would have been really cool, even if it were to just wrap up the story of Kang and bring in Doom. It would have been really cool to see. And this is what a lot of people thought before when we heard that Denzel Washington had met with Marvel. He met with Marvel right after all the stuff with Jonathan Majors went down, so a lot of us just assumed Marvel Studios was talking to him about possibly replacing Kang, and they might have been. We know that they were going to consider replacing Jonathan Majors as Kang until they decided that Kang wasn't actually that big of a villain, and a lot of people weren't too excited about him, so they decided instead of simply recasting Kang, they were just going to bring in Doom and bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Doom to get people hyped again, which, that definitely
like
worked. But no, Denzel Washington, according to Production Weekly, which usually is very accurate, is playing the one and only Dormammu. That's right, Dormammu is returning, but now he is going to be played by Denzel Washington. And this does make a lot of sense if we consider the post-credit scene for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and if we consider who Clea actually is. And this really does actually set up Doctor Strange 3 to be kind of a bigger movie than we originally thought it was going to be. Don't get me wrong, we already knew it was going to be pretty big, but we didn't really know who the main villain was going to be at the time. But now we know. So let's tie this to the ending of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and talk about what we know. Well, at the end, Clea and Strange were going to the Dark Dimension, the dimension ruled by Dormammu, who not only rules the Dark Dimension, but he also looks to seize other dimensions and
I've only watched that movie once.
The Dark Dimension, so essentially take over other dimensions and put them in his own, so he could rule essentially everything. And this just adds a completely new layer that I really like to Doctor Strange 3, especially with Clea as well. Because you see, Clea is actually the niece of Dormammu. Dormammu is the brother of Clea's mother. Now, in the comics, Clea's mother abandoned her right when she was born because Clea's birth was very traumatic to her. Umar was her name. And her brother Dormammu are beings called Faltine or Faltinians. They are extra-dimensional energy beings that are basically born of just pure magic. And they can be in human form or Faltine form, and that's what Dormammu typically chooses to remain as, his Faltine form. However, when Umar gave birth to Clea, she lost the ability to turn into her Faltine form, and she was just incredibly enraged by this. So she abandoned Clea, fought Dormammu. Dormammu kind of basically easily wiped the floor with her and banished her away. Clea then never really knew what happened to her mother, but she grew up worshipping Dormammu. So we've heard that in Doctor Strange 3, Clea is going to be a part of the group called the Black Priests. Now, the Black Priests are a multiversal organization that are essentially trying to stop the multiverse from being destroyed.
That's good, right? Oh yeah, of course, she's working with Strange. Of course, that's good.
Now, that seems to be the case for Doctor Strange 3 because at the end of Multiverse of Madness in that post-credit scene, she shows up and she tells Strange, you caused an incursion to happen, and we're going to fix it. So clearly she is doing something to try and fix the multiverse, to fix incursions, and it sounds like she definitely knows a way to fix them, which is good. Unless she's lying, which she might be, because we have learned that a lot of different parts of the multiverse think that Doctor Strange is the problem. He is the one. Him and his variants are causing incursions all throughout the multiverse. So this simply could be a trick to simply get him in front of the Black Priests or in front of Dormammu. Because like I mentioned, Dormammu is Clea's uncle, and she does serve and worship him in the beginning. However, eventually, she does go on to eventually marry Doctor Strange. So she does become good. It's actually a very romantic story that does involve Dormammu that I think might actually be the ending for Doctor Strange in the MCU. We know that the soft reboot is coming, and not everybody is going to survive the soft reboot, and some characters are going to be retired. Or some actors will retire playing certain characters, and some other characters will be recast in the new MCU. Doctor Strange could be one of those characters. But basically, in the comics, when Clea discovers Doctor Strange in the Dark Dimension, she gets pretty curious, and she essentially follows him around and ultimately helps him, and then Dormammu imprisons her. And this actually happens a lot. Dormammu imprisons Clea a lot. Doctor Strange comes,
this keeps coming over and over again, huh?
And she gets captured by her mother. She gets imprisoned. Doctor Strange comes, defeats her, lets her go. Eventually,
that's how comics are anyway. You know, it's a lot of similar stories recycled.
Clea goes to Earth at the Sanctum Sanctorum because they believe that's the only place safe. Doctor Strange and Clea fall in love until eventually Clea does have to go back to the Dark Dimension, where she would actually become Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension, having studied and being taught sorcery by Doctor Strange himself. And even though they were apart, they ultimately decided they loved each other, they didn't want to move past the love despite them being on different planes and different dimensions, and they wanted to be together. So they got married, but the kicker was they couldn't actually get married on Earth. They couldn't legally be married because Clea was an extra-dimensional being, so Strange and Clea began wearing magic rings that were actually just...
Nothing in our laws for this. I don't know if we can perform this.
It's one ring, but appeared as two on each of their fingers and connected them mystically for all eternity. That could be where we're headed for the ending of Doctor Strange. Maybe a happy ending for him, but Dormammu is definitely going to try and get in the way. He's already made one attempt at conquering Earth before.
His face looks like that mask for, you know who I'm talking about. Zemo. Should have had that mask in Civil War, but they never gave it to him, which is stupid.
In the very first Doctor Strange movie, Strange already defeated him once, and I'm sure he'll definitely be able to do it again. However, like I've said, this is going to be more than just defeating Dormammu. Strange is going to have to convince the Black Priests, and possibly Doctor Doom, in this, that he is not the one that is the giant threat to the multiverse. But it will be insanely cool to see Doctor Strange go up against Denzel Washington as Dormammu. And remember, Dormammu can take the shape of a human, which I'm sure we'll see quite a lot in Doctor Strange 3, because you don't just get Denzel Washington to have him essentially just appear CGI with his voice. You definitely could, but it would be a lot better to really use him, or at least use his face. He certainly does have a great voice to play Dormammu, and I really do hope they have a very interesting story for
That's interesting choice. Just thinking of the way Dormammu talks in the first one, and knowing how Denzel talks, I don't know if he's correct for him. We'll just have to see. By the way, who was the voice for the first one? Someone help me out on that. I could have swore they said Doctor Strange. Like, he actually played both of them, Dormammu and himself. So
I've come to
Denzel
right.
Washington
see.
to play out with Clea, with the multiverse, with Doctor Strange, in Doctor
Did you
Strange.
see Dormammu? That last.
So I'm excited about this. Let me know how excited you are in the comments down below. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And what would you want from this story with Denzel Washington playing Dormammu? Let us know in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like
We'll
this video
just have
and
to
subscribe
see.
so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. You can find it.
Alrighty, Wonder. We'll just have to see. The jury is fully out on this. I have no idea whether this will work or not. Just because